So to tie this all together, um, you want things version controlled. It You can create multiple branches to keep track of whatever things you want to keep separate. Um, so, for example, I might have a thing that's working already in my main or master branch, and uh, then I want to try like an alternate history where I go back to a point in time and then rewrite it more or less. Keeps the two things separate. Everyone can talk to it to, use that new code while it's being experimental, and then I can make it the default after I know it works. And it gives you this this ledger of different points in revision history to allow you to experiment as much as you want or as much as you need without creating so many different copies. I mean, how many times has anybody written something and then rewritten it and then done it all over again without actually keeping track of anything, and then said, oh my goodness, the way I was doing it 4 days ago works. I just needed to change that one line. This is where Git comes in addition to the fact that really what it's tracking is just the differences between each point in the ledger, which means you don't have 5 or 6 different copies of code or of data and so on and so forth, which is actually a really key point here. You probably don't want to add your data to GitHub. You do have a file size limit. For GitHub in particular, you can track the data in Git. That's fine. It'll give you a revision history, but it'll just get kind of big after a while. And then you have these unique IDs for each point in the version history that lets you say, oh, I don't want Jordan, I'm sorry I'm picking on you. You're just here, and you gave me access to your repo, so I could use it. I don't want Jordan's version of that file. I want to go to anybody else's branch, and I'm sorry, this is a hypothetical. Um, I want to go to anybody else's branch, and I want this specific revision inside of their branch of them working on that file. And I want to use that instead and see if it does anything different. And how do you accomplish that? Add the remote, git checkout, branch, commit number. Boom, done. And it doesn't affect anybody else, right? You just work inside of your local copy, no copies, so on and so forth. Um, and on top of that, we may or may not have access to the Jupyter Hub, so it makes it difficult to share and collaborate on any code. This is the way to do that. As far as enterprise is concerned, most large projects, and then if you want, our studio totally covered in a different video, like really, really different video. But it gives you buttons. You can just create an RStudio project directly from version control and add a remote connection inside of that pane that's up in the top right, that opens up a database connection to a remote file server. Um, and you just can load in your data that way. And that helps save immensely on bandwidth. It helps with all of these different things. And then you might be asking yourself, well, the VPN isn't totally stable, and everyone has this code in Jupyter Hub. Maybe working directly off of that might not work so awesome for shared copies. And that's where these idea of remotes come in, is you add as many different remotes as you want, you give them a name, and then you can kind of work with whatever code is there. By the way, a remote doesn't have to be, say we all come back to campus, we're all working in person, we all have unfettered access to the compute resources. No one ever said that the URL that you use for a remote actually has to be a URL. You can give it a file path. So there's some like main version that sits in a directory, and then over on your work directory in the Jupyter Hub, you just add a remote to that, and then you can just kind of take stuff as it happens. Um, from there, even if you don't actually write any of the code, you don't want to touch any of the code, you don't want to talk to anyone about code, but you're still there for the code review process. This way, we're not all sitting around one screen, scrolling back and forth, trying to keep track of what's going on, writing everything down. You lose the conversation and the ideas that are talked about when you're doing that. And that's what those GitHub comments are for. You generate a conversation history that brings everyone onto the same page about this thing, here's why. And on top of that, have to, you don't all have to be in one place at one time. Maybe I'm out at lunch and I am totally bored and I have some code reviews to go do. I'll throw open my phone and you can scroll through on your phone if you really want on this website and review the code from there. Uh, and nice little pretty visual interface, gives you links to everything, allows you to organize the absolute um, heads and tails out of it. Uh, so everyone can kind of stay on track if you need to, and you don't all have to be there in person. You can do all of this asynchronously. This is a widespread collaboration tool. And so finally, moving forward, how is any of this important? Uh, Now that we finally got here, um, typically, you create a directory structure that houses separate areas of code. So, one directory might contain merging utilities, one directory might contain the actual analysis portions, another directory may contain something else. And then you create a branch to actually develop new features and make changes out of those, because you have situations where the merging code needs to interface with the analysis code, or the analysis code needs to interface with like a Shiny app. And that Shiny app can just go be in its own directory, but we can keep it all together, right? But then you create a branch that says, okay, I'm going to develop the Shiny app over here. It'll still talk to the same directory and the same code as everyone else, using a separate branch inside of the same repository. Or over in the merging and analysis portion, and we got to be careful to differentiate here between merging branches versus merging data sets. Um, the You can kind of say, oh, I'm going to go work on the code that's actually going to merge the Nomad data with the other data um, in one branch, and then another branch can kind of talk about, okay, well, I'm going to take something and merge it with another data set, and so on and so forth throughout the whole thing. Uh, yeah, really using the terminal tools and everything else can save a lot of time and avoid deep duplication and general organizational issues, while still maintaining the conversations that occur around these and allowing them to go async, um, or even be taken kind of offline, so one person can kind of look over something when they have free time, and another person can go through and make changes relative to that in their own time as well, and still allow those two people plus however many you honestly want, to also all be working on the code and actually pull that together in a sane way, which will become necessary. There's a reason why this tool is the standard now across anybody that has a headquarter on the West Coast, and most places on the East Coast too. There's a reason for it. Okay, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. And please excuse how long-winded this is. If there's anything else to cover, there's a video where I do a live demo of every single one of these things over the course of about an hour and a half. And I just kind of zone out and just write. So you can see exactly what I do, what issues I run into, how I resolve them, and so on and so forth. There's also another playlist that contain expanded versions of this where I talk about each one of these things in depth. If you want the visual, hands-on, this is how you do it, and I want to see someone do it while they explain it to me. If you want that, or you can mute my god awful annoying voice. Okay, that's all. That's all. Peace out. Oh, yikes! No, stop recording.